Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Y Ball Starters. This is episode 17 of the Y Ball Starters. We are recording this on Sunday night after an exciting opening weekend of the NBA playoffs. The Portland Trailblazers get a big win over the Denver Nuggets, 123-109 to steal home court advantage. So you would think we were going to talk about the playoffs for this episode, but no, we are going to talk about ourselves. We have brought on my dad, Jamie Lawson, who was also our YMCA coach for 2 seasons. Is that right?
2 seasons. Yep.
2 seasons. Well, John and I played for my dad for 2 seasons in the YMCA. Kendall played for 1 half.
Yeah, like not 1 half of a season, like 1 half of a game of basketball.
Half of a game.
Half of a game, which if you want to delve back into when our podcast was objectively bad, back to episode 1, you can go back and listen to that story again. But I'll lead right into it. John, Kendall, how are you guys doing tonight? Dad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm doing great.
Great. Well, let's get right into it with the YMCA.
I mean, it was a question to 3 people at one time.
Exactly. So. That was kind of the intent. I knew that would happen. It was rather manipulative of me, so I'll apologize. We kind of have to have our weekly apology anyway on this show. This week it's from me. So Kendall, to kind of recap for our listeners a little bit, what is the reason why you only played for 1 half of 1 game for my dad, as opposed to John and I, who got in almost 20 games between 2 seasons, because that's how the YMCA works.
That's a lot of games. I wish that I could have experienced that many games, honestly. No, so I came off the bench. That's something that I really want to make sure that's clarified. So I'm the only one here who is part of the Y Ball bench, not the Y Ball starters. But I was having a great game. I was shooting the 3 ball well, and we got a steal off their point guard, and we were pushing it in transition, and I was going up for the layup, and I had beaten my guy, and he just shoved me with 2 hands in the back as I was going up for the layup, and I landed hard on my wrist. And for anybody who knows me, I have broken my wrist 3 times and then badly bent a bone another time in it. So about 4 times total. So that one was my worst break, though. It was pretty gnarly. And I think I want to say, Jamie, you thought that I was playing it up at first, right?
Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, it was a hard foul, and it was a dirty foul too. So I mean, it was fast break you alone, and then shoved in the back on the way up to the lay-in. And I wasn't like, I wouldn't say that I thought you were faking it, but I thought, oh, he's playing it up for the foul. You know, I mean, it's a LeBron move. It's, you know, I'm going to get on the ground for a second and make sure that the ref knows that it was a foul.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Except this time I wasn't seeing 3 different rims and shooting for the middle one, but I knew I'd broken it instantly. It was kind of one of those nasty, grotesque injuries that you see. And I went to the bench anyways, yeah, that was the end of my season. But I think the part that ticked me off the most was the coach was cheering on his player. Like, I could hear him saying that was a great foul. I'm like, dude, do you even watch basketball? Like, that is so dirty.
I feel like a lot of YMCA coaches don't watch much basketball from personal experience.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, probably for a lot of coaches, it's dads that are just wanting to hang out with their kid, or there's a shortage of coaches, which is not unusual for YMCA basketball, for sure. Can I give you my just memory of the break? I just want to add to the story, and I want to add a little bit to the legend of in the break, because he goes down and he gets up and not wincing, not like crying, not yelling, and he just walks over as calm as can be to me, and he goes, "Coach, I think I broke it." And I was like, okay, yeah, you know. And I'm looking at his face thinking, well, no, because when people break bones, that's not how they look. And then he showed me the wrist, and it was snapped. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, swollen. It was snapped. I was like, oh,
like
Kendall.
This, those of you watching
broken.
on YouTube, it was like that.
We should figure something out. then maybe call timeout and see what happens.
Well,
but I mean, kudos to you.
The crazy thing is too, if I remember right, almost like 5 minutes of game time elapsed before anyone stopped the clock even. Like, I'm pretty sure we lost like almost a good like 3 to 5 minutes of the second half.
Which would have been really valuable since we lost.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, was it 3 or was it 2? I thought we might have, was it 3?
It was 3 because we drew up a play for a 3. Like, there was no option. Like, we had to shoot a 3 on the last possession.
Yeah, they just kept going, and I was trying to get the refs' attention, be like, "Hey, we got to stop! Like, look at this kid's wrist. Can we please just pause?" And nope, that's a hard and fast rule for YMCA. I mean, like, so hard and fast that they won't do it for a kid with a snapped wrist.
Kendall, well, you should have. Go ahead, Kendall.
I know that at one point though, one of the refs, because I ended up going out with John's parents, took me to the hospital, and I know one of the refs ended up walking me out to the car. So one of them must have left while I was still going. But I know that we just subbed somebody else in and they shot the free throws for me when I walked off. And the only reason that I have a pretty good pain tolerance, but I had already broken my wrist a couple times before, so I just knew instantly. I was like, it's just another walk in the park. It is, it happens. Everybody suffers through that, right?
Oh man, yeah, it was gnarly.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, I was really disappointed though that we ended up losing the game. I really thought you guys were gonna make the. I mean, I get it. It was probably emotional for you guys, but.
Well, as I recall, you were not our only player that was out too, because we hadn't signed David yet. And I sometimes get confused between who was on what team. But John, we had other guys out that game, did we not?
Yeah, I think we had our center, Seth, out. We were kind of undersized. But, I mean, the team, what really hurt us is they ran, like, full court press every play. And we just, I mean, shout out YMCA. We just weren't good enough to beat it. Like, we would try and attack it one-on-one versus actually just, like, passing the ball out of it. So that's what really hurt us is down the stretch, we had, like, 3 or 4 turnovers in the backcourt trying to dribble the ball out of the press.
Which is, by the way, I mean, that's a coach's nightmare. And I can give you like a coach's perspective because I think you're exactly right, John. You did try to dribble out of it, but I don't think it was because like you weren't good enough. I think it was a little bit of ego from some players. And I mean, you always pass out of the press. Like that's just basketball 101. And it was, it was frustrating to watch from the sidelines.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, but also I think the way YMCA works, don't you get like 2 practices and then you just start playing games?
Yes.
So, yeah. I mean,
yes. We had no time.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of time to work on beating the press.
No, and I think we did after that. I mean, I'm sure we did after that game, and the press didn't hurt us at all anymore. I mean, it helped obviously having more players, but yeah, no, you're right. Like, especially that year, our team really was pretty good. Everyone had, especially for YMCA level, everyone had some basketball skills. So that really speaks to our success. We were missing players every week, and we still won most of our games,
including the SAT game. See, I have my memory of the SAT game, and I've told it before, where I think I was the only person that took the SAT and showed up on time for the game. And I thought I was starting on the bench because I showed up after warmups. So I just assumed like, I'm probably gonna have to come off the bench just because I'm not loose at all. And then I showed up and you were like, nope, we have 4 players. Like, you're in. Like,
get in. Oh man, I stalled the refs as long as I could. I was like, hey, they're taking the SATs. Like, we can't, like, we have to reward these kids. They're trying to do a good job for their future and they're committed. And can we not just, and I think we were the last game, right? I don't think there was a game following us, which is usually,
yeah, I think so.
I'm pretty sure that's the case. And usually like that was why they wanted to run the clock and make everything like work really fast was because there was always a game following, and there wasn't a game following. So I was like, please, we've got players coming just hold. And then, and then yeah, you showed up and we're like, yep, there we go. There's the starters. And then I think a few more kind of trickled in, but we didn't get the full roster.
No, we didn't get subs until halftime, as I recall.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I showed up right as the first half ended. So I was able to like warm up in between halves. I remember
okay.
Oh, go for
it. This is my memory that I don't know if it's accurate. In that game, did you show up not prepared to play? Like, someone showed up without their basketball stuff?
No, so that's that was me in an entirely separate game. In the last game of the year,
yes
I remember I'll tangent this story and then we can get back to the SAT game. But I remember you guys were playing at a different middle school. That year, our local YMCA was remodeling, so they were playing at like middle schools around the county. And I remember you guys were playing at a different one, and I was going to, I think it was a graduation, but it was nearby, and so we were driving past it, and I looked at the time, and I was like, oh, like the game's probably still on. I told my parents like, hey, like let's stop by. I want to pop in, see the end of the game, like just say hi to them. And I walk in, and everyone looks so stoked to see me. And I'm like, well, that's not good. And so they call me over and they tell me that they have 4 players due to injuries and foul outs.
Oh yeah.
And that they need me to come in. And it's like
That's
95 outside. And so I'm wearing cargo shorts, like a button down shirt and like Vans. And I end up putting on one of my teammates' jersey and I go on the court and I'm just telling my teammates, like, do not give me the ball. I can't. Like I'm sliding, just like walking on the court. Like I was like, I can't touch the ball. I'm going to travel. So I think I had to like play defense on a possession, and that's it. But man, it was so funny to walk in and be like, I mean, I'm wearing shorts, so I guess I could sub in.
Are we far enough removed from that to be able to rant about the YMCA refs? Because oh my gosh. It was unfortunate. I remember there was I don't remember what year it was. I got a bloody nose one game and the ref pointed at that and said, you hit yourself in the face with the ball. And I'm like, are you serious? Like
there was one ref that I recall being a good ref. I mean, and he still, I mean, those guys were not like, they did not want to blow the whistle. It took a lot for them to blow the whistle. It had to be egregious. And we're not talking little kids. Like we're talking high school level YMCA, which, okay, it's YMCA, but man, yeah, they were not. It was show up, get paid. And if I have to blow the whistle, then all right, I'll blow the whistle. But it took a lot for them to blow a whistle.
Jamie, were there any times?
And some teams.
Were there any times that you ended up yelling at a ref?
I don't know that I ever yelled at a ref. I got really heated though, in conversation with the refs during when you broke your wrist. And that, I mean, I never wanted to blow my stack in front of the team or in front of parents because one, it's because it's YMCA, and two, I just, I mean, I wanted to set a good example, but like that, a team was playing dirty and it was making me like, it was legit making me angry, and not like, oh, whatever, angry as in you got to do something about this because like there's a code of conduct for YMCA.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are rules that you have to follow, and they were definitely not following the rules, nor was it good sportsmanship, which is one of the core tenets. And I think that was the closest I came. You could always talk with the refs, and at halftime and at quarters, you'd go out and be like, hey, seems like there's some fouls going on that aren't being called. What's the deal? And they just didn't care.
Nope, not at all. What was the SAT game? The same game where a kid threw his chair because he was mad we came back and won?
Yes, that was the same game.
That was probably my favorite YMCA memory, because there was also a game.
Wait, was it? That was was the SAT game the last game of the season? Because the one where the kid threw the chair, I think, was the last game of the season.
The game I Well, what was the last game? Because the last game of the season was the game where Seth and I both fouled out by like halftime.
Yeah, I think the game that
that was the chair throwing game.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, then that was the game that I came in with cargo shorts, because that was the game that you and Seth fouled out of.
Yeah, because that's why we needed you to go in, because like we didn't have enough players, because that was the one game where the ref just decided to call everything.
Were you guys leading by the point you came in, John, or was it still a really close game?
I think we were up 5 or 4. I think it was like a 2-possession game, but like it was close enough to where we absolutely need another body on the floor.
Yeah.
But like I wasn't like going in there to make a clutch defensive stop.
Yeah, we literally just needed a body.
Yeah.
You could have gone in with your broken wrist, Kendall. It would have been fine.
100%. As long as you could stand near someone on defense, good enough for us.
I mean, I don't think anybody's making a defensive last-second stop with Vans on. Just a guess.
Depends on the team in the YMCA, because another game John and I were talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
This was senior year, right, John?
Yes, 100%.
The 39-12 game. That game was awesome. I don't know if you remember that one, but it was like it was a night game, which was strange. We played at like 8 or something. And it was one of those games where you just show up and you know you're going to win, because the other team, like in warm-ups, you can just tell they haven't played basketball before.
Yeah.
But we could hit. John and I were like, and Spencer, we were kind of the leaders on that team. And the three of us could not hit a shot to save our lives. We were bricking everything. But we locked him up on defense and won 39-12. It was so awesome.
Yeah, I think the game was like 15-4 at halftime. Like 20-minute halves. Like it's gross. Like that's disgusting.
What do you remember about the senior year team? Because we were not good. Junior year was the year. John and my and Kendall's junior year was the year we were pretty good. And we won most of our games. And I remember we had a really good defense that year, especially.
The defense was good. Everybody was really active that year. Which in YMCA, like that's 80% of it. If you can just be active, you could probably go undefeated if you're good on defense in YMCA basketball.
Yeah.
But no kid wants to sign up for rec league and be like, yes, I'm going to be sweet defensively. Like, which honestly, like that was the problem. Like senior year, that was the problem, is we didn't have a team. We had a whole bunch of players that just wanted the rock and then wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. Like there was a kid that literally I would pull him out of a game and sit him on the bench next to me, and I would try to chat. He had skills, and he would just not even give me eye contact. And so he would ignore everything that I told him to do.
It was John.
Even simple things like, hey, maybe I'm not naming names, but
sorry, guys.
It was a kid. But
it wasn't John. But
that was a senior year. That was a little bit of a tragic year because there was skilled players on that team, and not a lot of players wanted to play on a team. So it was tough. It was tough to coach. That was the year we tried to institute a very basic motion offense.
That's right.
Which isn't that tough. Motion offense is like pass it and go set a screen. That's the whole idea. That's it. That's all you got to know.
Yeah.
Pass it one direction, go set a screen the opposite direction. There.
Yep.
Now you've learned motion offense. Could not get anybody to buy in. Even if you would say, this is going to get you open shots. Do you know that? Like, this is going to help you be open. Nope. Didn't matter. So that was a tough. I don't even remember what our record was that year.
I don't either. We won a couple. We won a couple.
I think we won a few. I think we were like 50%, like halfway through.
Yeah, my memory is around 500.
And then we like lost like 4 to end the year. I think we fell apart at the end, if I remember right.
We can just blame my missed game-winning shot as just the pop in the bubble. Just completely derailed our championship chances in a league where there's no playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, But it's still fun, right? I mean,
Right.
You want to play to win. That's why you keep score. Doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it, but
right.
Still, the goal is to learn how to beat the other team. And yeah, it was too bad that there were so many skilled players that just didn't want to play together.
John and I were talking about one game before this. My memory is a little hazy on a lot of YMCA stuff, but this I do remember very vividly. After warmups, John overheard the opposing team saying they're going to run full court press. And so you just switched me, John, and Spencer to the 1, 2, and 3, just because we were the only players on the team that knew what to do. And like some of the underclassmen were like moping on the bench, I remember, which was unfortunate.
Yeah. I recall that, which it's not even a big deal. And the thing with YMCA, there are rules for coaches, and the rules for coaches are you have to play every player the same number of minutes. I mean, roughly, right? So you would substitute at certain times, and it was harder to mix and match. So you'd basically get 2 lineups, and one lineup would play half the game and the other lineup would play half the game. But if players didn't want to play together, it didn't even matter. It was like, oh, I guess it's you guys now. You're going to go out there. But yeah, that game in particular, and it's difficult to try to convince somebody that doesn't really know you or trust you, which I think was the difference between those 2 years, right? The second year,
yeah,
nobody really knew me, and so they didn't trust me. And
right.
So to say, hey, if you just listen to what I say and do what I ask you to do, you're going to get more open shots. You're going to get rebounds. There's a better chance you might even win the game. But they wouldn't. So any switch just felt like it was always taken personally.
Yeah.
Even though you're not going to have much fun if they keep stealing the ball in the backcourt from you. Like, that's not a fun game. So let's switch that up.
Yeah, I remember there was a game where I touched the ball 6 times on offense. And I took 3 shots and had 3 assists. So the ball movement wasn't great.
Goat numbers.
It was kind of frustrating to have to play the same amount of minutes as everyone, being one of the better players, especially on Drew and I's senior year, because just going out, like being subbed out and then watching all your hard work be undone. Very demoralizing. To watch the lead slip and then be like, okay, I'm gonna have to make this up when they get the amount of time that I've gotten, it's tough to watch. But I mean, it's YMCA. Like, what are you gonna do? But yeah, like that's what makes it so hard is when you're not playing together, you don't trust the other dudes that are out there on the court to maintain anything.
Oh no, not at all. And I mean, because it's YMCA and because you have to play, everybody all the same number of minutes. I mean, you can't. I want to win. We're far enough removed from this that I can speak openly and honestly about it. Right? I'm competitive
all the time.
I want to win, and it was like, even from a coach's perspective, sometimes I wanted to pull people, not even for the whole game, but to pull them and substitute somebody else and just say, hey, watch what they're doing. This is going to be a good representation of what you should maybe think about doing. Do you see how they're staying in front of the person that they're guarding? Do you see how they talk, or do you see how those 2 guys talk and they switch on defense? That's what we're trying to do. And you can't really do that. And so even that was frustrating, that I knew, like, once I put a rotation of 5 in, like, that was it. The end.
That's it.
Even if they were getting smoked.
Yeah.
And you just watch the clock.
Here's the thing.
I hope they all just miss shots on the other team.
Here's the thing is that if it's frustrating to watch people like that, like even as small of a league as like the YMCA is, like it's like just barely organized enough. I can't even imagine how frustrating it must be for like legit like high school players or college players or pro players to play with people like that who are just,
oh my gosh,
I guess more on the selfish side or more just trying to get their own bucket all the time. I can't even imagine how frustrating that would be.
Or professional coaches. How frustrating that must be. Because the NBA, like, there are so many great players that there are almost too many great players that it's like, the league is kind of selfish at the moment because everyone is so good at getting their own. So, I mean, that's got to be somewhat frustrating, at least on the nights that it's not working for the teams.
It's so true. Well, here's the old school opinion. I'm convinced of this. And I understand it. I'm pushing 50. And so it's fine. Maybe this take is no longer apply. I'm still convinced that passing the ball a lot of times with a purpose is always going to make you a better team. And so even like the teams that just run straight ISO all the time, I get it. I'm just an armchair coach, right? I'm, just some nobody sitting in his living room yelling at the TV. But I'm still convinced, like when you pass that ball around, a defender can't keep up. Like they can't run faster than the ball can be passed. Mm-hmm. So it feels like it always has a better chance to lead to buckets. But I'm not a professional. I don't know what I would do if it was my livelihood at stake.
I mean, you watched the Knicks team play today, this afternoon, and that team, their roster is awful. And they're the 4th seed in the East. Like, just by playing defense and moving the ball, like, they're a coach's dream. Like Julius Randle's their star. He made the All-Star game this year, but, like, they don't have any superstars. But they go out there and they win because they do the fundamentals. So I think there is definitely something to be said to it.
Are they Thibodeau? Is Thibodeau coaching that team?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They run their starters like 40 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, defense and pass the ball. That's a Thibodeau hallmark.
And playing the starters too many minutes.
Obviously, we're kind of working backwards. We kind of talked about senior year, and now working back to junior year, we can actually talk about the team that was good. What was good about that team that you remember? We touched on it a little bit earlier, but
yeah. The first thing there's two things that stand out. And the first one is active defensively. I'm like people took pride in it. And I think it was because a lot of the players had played before and they knew that good defense was going to lead to buckets. And so there's a pride issue on defense. So it was active hands. And there were a couple in particular, and I forget the one kid, he was like lanky, a lefty, I think.
Oh, is it Jesse? Probably.
No, like I don't think so. Anyway,
that could be a number of guys.
Yeah, he went to a bit of a wild card, and sometimes he would frustrate me because he would take tons of chances on defense, and I would think, "Oh, what's he doing? He's out of position." But he hustled so much, and probably 3 out of 4 times he would end up with a turnover. The 4th time, he would get burned for a bucket because he was in the wrong spot. But he still moved around and he created turnovers and he loved to play defense. So that was the first thing. That was one of the reasons I think it went much better. And the second reason I think was it was personal, like in that I think those individual players received coaching more readily. Why? I'm not sure. But I felt like I could talk to players and they would either give me an opinion back or they would try at least to do what I asked them to do. And it ended up working out much better just because we could create a few sets, not many, but a few. And there was at least a plan that they would try to execute. And even in-game coaching in YMCA is a little bit weird. You don't know who scouts a YMCA team.
Right.
But in game, you would have to make adjustments because every team played very, very differently. So, like some teams were all about the pick and roll. And so you could make some adjustments, say, hey, you guys, if we can take away that pick and roll, that's it. We'll smoke them. Some teams like to trap. And if you can beat the trap, then you could smoke those teams. So with that team, they just were better listeners, and seemed to play. And maybe this is the third thing. It seemed like at least most of the players liked each other, as humans, as people. And so there's a little more trust when you like somebody. You'll give up the ball a little bit more. You'll encourage a little bit more when you like one of the other teammates, which wasn't as much the case senior year.
No, junior year, it was like we would hang out with the whole team at practice. And senior year, it was like, well, I guess I'll go talk to John and Spencer.
Right.
Literally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, even as coach, like on those first couple practices, I would try to get to know kids and they would not even talk back. Like they wouldn't tell me what school they went to. It was just like they would grab a ball and go shoot at another hoop. Like, well, all right, I guess this is what we're doing this time.
And junior year we did.
So I coached half a team.
That's rough.
Right.
Yeah.
It was probably not a good sign that John and I went from the worst defenders who played regular minutes one year to the best defenders who played regular minutes one year.
Oh,
yeah,
tough.
that probably wasn't it.
What
But
was your guys' record that senior year?
Oh, like 3-6 or something, or 2-6,
Just
something
under
like
500.
that. Yeah,
Ooh.
Not
we
great.
started out pretty decent, but then
the mighty fell
we kind of
quick.
fell apart. Yeah, I mean,
well, part of it was because that team senior year, it rose and it fell on Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes he wasn't there because he had a golf tournament.
True.
I mean, but whatever. Like the kid's going to be a professional golfer, so
yeah.
go ahead and skip YMCA for.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of times he had some health issues and he couldn't quite play the whole game. And then some games he wasn't hitting his shots, and he would. That was tough for him to not hit his shots. So we kind of rose and fell based on whether. I mean, it's like a Lillard, right? You rise and fall. If Lillard doesn't play well, they don't have a huge. I mean, it was a similar thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for the listeners at home, John and I at no point were able to combine for 50 and pull a dead team out of the water.
Unfortunately not.
No.
You guys
But
could
you made the
combine though for
effort.
15.
You made the effort.
We
So-
did combine for 15 steals one game.
We did. True story.
Wow,
So-
that's actually impressive.
So we were able to do that one game. But yeah, no, we could not do that.
Nope. Moving on from YMCA talk a little bit, we'll kind of sandwich this episode with our regular segments, Where Are They Now and Blazer Killers. So we'll start off with John. We'll ask the question we always ask. John, where are they now?
All right, and so today on Where Are They Now, we're doing it's not a super throwback. It's about 8 years ago, but you guys remember former Blazer bench big legend Thomas Robinson.
Ooh.
Oh man,
Some little
That's a good
T-Rob over
call.
here.
So we're gonna see when T-Rob played last. Looks like 2017. He was on the Lakers back before they became good. But played for Portland a couple years. Played in Kansas. They played the year Anthony Davis was in Kentucky. They played them in the finals, and it looked like he was going to be a really good NBA player. Unfortunately for him, he was drafted by the Kings, and the rest is history. As per a lot of fellow players drafted by the Kings, they've not had a great run. But looking now, Thomas Robinson is engaged. Oh, he's married now. He was married in 2018. Good for him.
Congratulations, Tom.
Good job, man.
Yes. To his
it's a big life step.
his partner Kay Cyree Craig, a model.
Not sure if
a
you said that
nurse and
right.
Instagram model. It's a KAI space CYRE.
Okay.
So
Huh,
definitely a guess I took there. It appears that he is a co-founder of Family Over Everything Foundation, alongside with the Morris twins.
Oh.
That's crazy.
Look at that.
And that appears to be everything I can find on Thomas Robinson. So that is where are they now?
You know,
So did
John,
he not even like go to Europe or anything after the NBA stint? I feel like he had like
Doesn't
Europe
look
skills.
Which is very odd because he wasn't a terrible player. He didn't really find a fit in the NBA, but he had skills.
now
He played
Tom,
he played the G League 2018-19. Played 1 year in the Euro League, but did not have a great year. Having just 8 and 6. Yeah.
Now, Thomas Robinson was the one who had that, like, one of the greatest dunks of all time, though, for Blazers, right?
Block. On,
it was that block.
It was the block.
Brewer?
I think it was Brewer, yeah.
Was it Barton who had the dunk?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
That was one of the more fun plays since I've been following basketball. Like that
I think it was
crazy.
the most fun. That was an insane sequence.
So moving from fun to bad, Kendall, how about this week's Blazer Killer?
Well, you know, since this week we've only really played one game and it actually went really well, I decided to go more of a throwback. And this week I really wanted to focus on Blazer Killer legend Marshawn Brooks from the Memphis Grizzlies, who back in March of 2018 absolutely destroyed the Blazers single-handedly. Now, Marshawn Brooks was on a 10-day contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. It was his first game with the Grizzlies, and he was 29 years old. And he scored 14 of his 21 points in the fourth quarter and connected on a three that put the Grizzlies up. He made 7 of 12 shots, including all 5 of his three-point attempts. And along with him, rookie Dylan Brooks scored 18 points to help put away the Blazers that game. That was a really bad game. That was a tough one.
Historic Marshawn Brooks for work. Did he get a contract out of that?
I think he did. It doesn't say in this article, but I'm pretty sure that he did afterwards. I don't remember how long. It wasn't
a Yogi Ferrell, like Portland started his career game necessarily.
No. Well, Yogi Ferrell was also a lot younger when he had his game against Portland. Marshawn Brooks is 29 years old, so he was kind of on the wrong end of father time there. But still, though, I mean, hey, congratulations to Marshawn Brooks. I mean, it makes sense, but
it does make some sense. Dad, were there any notorious Blazer killers back in the 90s?
Oh man, it's hard to remember. I'm having trouble remembering specifics of Blazer killers in the 90s, but it always seems like there's some unknown pushing another team over the top for some dumb reason. In the early 90s, I don't remember like a lot of Blazer killers, right? Those were really good teams, right? That was Porter Drexler, Duckworth, Kersey, Buck Williams teams. And those guys held their own. But I can't think off the top of my head if there were any specific unknown Blazer killers, but it does feel like that has just always been a part of Blazer history. Whether or not that's accurate, it feels like it's accurate.
Or whether it be Beno Udrih in the playoffs, it feels like there's always someone.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about Beno Udrih. Oh, that's a rough one.
Maybe it's because the Blazers have always just like left a guy open. And like any NBA player that's just left open can hit a shot. I mean, like the NBA scrubs are like otherworldly in actual basketball.
Yes.
So
100%.
That reminds me a little bit of, I've been told before by people that, if we just get a group of our friends together, we could go beat the Eastern women's team because they're not very good. And I'm like, are you serious? Like sometimes I wish, obviously I've been fortunate enough to cover like Division I and like been around the NBA with a team that was 20 minutes from where I grew up. But like watching even just Division I, mid-major, low mid-major, even a bad team. And I'm like, Eastern went like, they were horrible. They were like 5-25 or something. But the fact that they beat 5 Division I teams, I don't know if like people realize how good they are if they win a Division
incredibly.
I game.
Yeah. I did a bunch of video work for Oregon State's women's basketball team that went to the Final Four. And saw them on the court, shot video of them on the court. And I was not the worst. I was not the worst at basketball growing up. They would have destroyed me. They were very, very good.
Well, kind of going off that 90s Blazers tangent a little bit, in episode 12, we here at the Y Ball Starters did our all-time Blazers draft, where we all picked 10 players. So 30 players were drafted total. And obviously, Dad, you saw that episode, and there were some questionable picks, some solid picks. Obviously, us being in our early 20s, we have been physically capable of watching and comprehending Blazers basketball for only about 15 years. So we'll obviously all have some recency bias in there. But what were some picks that stood out to you, good or bad?
But yes, that's good. But so, I mean, can we visit Kendall's pick of Steve Blake? Not just Kendall's pick of Steve Blake. Kendall's pick of starter Steve Blake.
Hey, I really like Steve Blake.
He's on our list. He's trying to recruit him.
Well, that would be a good get. I'm sure he's a wonderful individual, but you left so many point guards on the board as you guys were drafting starters. I mean, you left Damon Stoudemire on the board. You left Rod Strickland. I mean, like, those are all stars, like legit all stars. I mean,
I didn't see it, so I don't know about that.
You could have picked Danny Ainge. You could have picked Kenny Anderson, who you may not know as well, but was a really great point guard. Well, I shouldn't say great. He was a very above average point guard. I mean, Greg Anthony would have been a better pick. So that was the first one. I also take a little bit of issue with the Greg Oden pick. Actually, Kendall, it's pretty much all you. The issues I have are all with Kendall. So the Greg Oden, a little bit of recency bias, although I'll defend you in this way with the Greg Oden pick. Not a ton of great centers through Portland. Did anyone ever pick Chris Kaman? You guys even remember that he played?
No, I don't think any of us
at
did.
one point.
No.
He was an all-star at one point. He was not
forget
great.
that he was that good.
He ended his career in Portland and wasn't very good when he played in Portland. But at one point, he was an all-star. And then I have a question, just maybe you could explain. My question is, Jarrett Jack? That's my question.
Hey, he scores. Jarrett Jack scores.
Does he?
Sure.
So, yeah.
I mean, Kiki Vandeweghe. Do you know Kiki Vandeweghe, Kendall?
I'm gonna be honest. I do not know anything pre. I don't
Okay.
know
Heard the
anything.
name, but
That's fair.
2008.
Super early, but
I
mean, all
bad
you had to
recency
do was
bias.
like look. So he's like, I think he's like a 20+ point per game lifetime average. At one year, average
Very
maybe 30 in a game. I mean, if you want scoring, there's a guy you could go Kiki.
That is good to
Jim
know.
Paxson, famous
My
bull, John
feelings.
Paxson's brother. He was a really good. Anyway, so I'm still curious. What was the Jarrett Jack deal there?
I remember I watched him play one time when he was on Golden State with Steph Curry, and he really had a great game. And I'm like, you know what, my team. And I think it was against the Clippers in the playoff game. I remember watching that, and I was like, yeah, he's a good player. To defend myself, I do feel like my top few players were really, really strong to carry the weight of some of my bad picks down the stretch. Like Clyde Drexler,
so
Bill Walton, Carmelo.
Yeah, look, that top three, that Drexler, Walton, Carmelo, that's really, really, really solid for sure. But then out of nowhere comes Steve. I mean, just think what would have happened if you added someone like Rod Strickland to that mix. I mean, unstoppable. You might have had the best starting five, Kendall, if you would have figured out that point guard.
From your perspective, I could see if we were at the Moda Center and it was a packed stadium and the Blazers PA was like, the best 5 players in Blazer history are walking out the tunnel right now, and you saw all these guys come out with Steve Blake, I could see how the crowd would be extremely confused by that.
We're extremely happy. I mean, Steve Blake is well liked in Portland.
Yeah, maybe it's just the future. I'm like, oh, that guy turned out to be the best point guard in Portland history. Clearly better than. He's clearly better than. Let me check. John and my point guards, Damian Lillard and Terry Porter.
I mean, at that point, I think like Drazen Petrovic was still on the board, right?
I picked him pretty late.
You could have picked up Drazen. I thought it was a good pull to remember that Sean Kemp played a couple very memorable seasons.
That was a Wikipedia of I had the last pick in the draft, and I'm like, there's gonna be someone, and like there were a few where we were like, oh, no one took Damon Stoudemire. Oh, no one took Duckworth was I think a guy. We were like, oh, no one took Duckworth. We didn't even realize about Rod Strickland.
No one took Buck Williams either, I don't think, right?
No. And in fact, John, that was so. Here's my beef with you. Is I think you would have had the most dominant. To be honest, I'm not sure who's is the most dominant starting five, but if you would have swapped out Buck Williams for Gerald Wallace in that starting five, oh my gosh, that starting five would win a ton of games. That Lillard, Roy, Rashid, Pau Gasol, and then you got the Buck Williams, down there like eating up rebounds. Oh man.
Yeah, I couldn't find any wings like at that time because I think it was like my fourth or fifth pick. Like it was one of my last like starter picks, and I couldn't find any wings. And I was like, oh, I know Gerald Wallace was pretty good, so I'll just kind of throw that out there. But yeah, I know I was honestly like mad when I picked him too. I was like, all right, well, Gerald Wallace will have to do so I don't kill airtime.
I'm gonna have to look this up. For some reason, I also think that Juwan Howard played for the Blazers for a stint.
He did.
Right?
He did.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
Because I do think like there was a potential for some Juwan Howard. Here's the player I think that might be the best player. Well, besides Lillard, I'm gonna give Lillard the Blazers Lifetime Achievement Award. I think is Arvydas Sabonis. That guy, man, it's a 90s Blazer fan regret that he didn't come over when Portland had that killer starting five, when they had Drexler, because they had his rights. They've had his rights since into the something weird like 84 or 85 or something crazy. I don't remember exactly. But if they could have convinced him to come over, because that was after communism fell, and if they could have brought him over in like 91, 92, those guys would have challenged the Bulls for supremacy. I'm convinced if they had early 90s Arvydas, who was unbelievable.
Well, Arvydas made the Basketball Hall of Fame with like 6 years of NBA experience, right?
Yeah,
like something crazy.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, like he was the star of the Olympic team that finally put an end to the United States' incredible run of gold medals. I think it was Arvydas, which I think was 88.
Oh,
I could be mistaken.
Right.
Interesting.
Was it the year that they lost to force the Dream Team, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
I think
right.
so.
I didn't realize that he was part of that. That's interesting.
That's my memory of it. I know he killed it in the Euro League before he came over. I think he just came over like all broken, and I mean, I've heard stories of like the amount of vodka that he was drinking at the time, just trying to get around on his painful giant limbs, and he still was amazing. I mean,
oh man.
I could hit threes.
That's
and
crazy.
pass. Like he was a 7-foot+ guy that could hit threes before that was a thing in the NBA. I mean, he played like a point guard, really, really smart.
Did he play it all like Nikola Jokic, kind of looking at 7-footers that can kind of shoot, pass, and run the offense? Or were they different players?
Yeah, so he was a more live Jokic, right? Like Jokic, he's deceptively quick. I mean, he doesn't look super quick, but he's really, really skilled and huge. And And yeah, Sabonis was like that, but with at least the appearance of more coordination. I can't say Jokic doesn't have coordination because the guy's, maybe the MVP of the league. Yeah. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of that.
Jamie, who would be your top 5 then? Your starting 5?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot.
All time.
One other guy that I think was missed.
Yeah, same thing that we did.
Is Brian Grant. I would want that guy on any team that I had. Also, if you wanted scoring, you guys at all remember J.R. Ryder during the Jailblazers era?
No.
No, it was before I started watching.
Sorry. Okay. Really skilled basketball player, crazy in his head, though. But if you want buckets, that's the guy. He's going to get you buckets.
Little Latrell Sprewell right there.
Kind of going on that tangent. We'll get to your all-time 5 to give you a sec to think. But we started watching Blazers basketball during the Brandon Roy era. Like that was our first exposure as kids. So what were the craziest things that happened during the Jailblazers era? I know there was a lot, and we've learned about it through like Wikipedia and stuff, but.
Man. So yeah, I'll just go by memory, and I'm not sure how many names I'll get right. So this is pre-Brandon Roy. I mean, I remember Rasheed Wallace trying to get in a fight with a ref after a game. I don't remember if they did or if it was just threats. I remember, let's see. I think it was also Rasheed and Damon Stoudemire. They drove down from a game in Seattle and got pulled over for smoking pot on the I-5, driving down I-5.
That might have been Zebo, but I know it was Damon Stoudemire at least.
It was, yeah. I thought Rasheed was in the car.
It might have been Sheed though. Yeah.
They had Ruben Patterson was a guy. He got arrested. Like there was some kind of weird, like he assaulted somebody. Some weird that had to do with his nanny. That there might have been a sexual assault case.
Oh my gosh.
And it was J.R. Ryder. So J.R. Ryder also got arrested in Portland he had a bong made out of a Coke can in his car. And he got arrested, pulled over on this. I mean, he was just pulled over somewhere, smoking out of his Coke can bong. And those guys were all on the same team. I mean, it was right after that, after Pippen and Steve Smith left. And they were just trying to be competitive, and they would just Trader Bob Whitsitt was the general manager, and he would sign anybody with talent, period. regardless of any circumstances. He just loved acquiring talent, and it came at a bit of a cost. So those were some of the things I remember. It was really hard to be a fan. You're like, I don't like this team, and that was really difficult as a lifelong Blazer fan.
How many years? How long of a span was that all those events happened in?
It was, let's see. So it wasn't super long. I mean, it was probably 3 to 4 years, right? So it was after that, the failed Western Conference Finals against the Lakers just kind of killed them. I think they tried to run it back one more time. Didn't work. And then, Pippen was gone, and Sabonis was gone, and Steve Smith was gone. So veteran players that knew how to win and be a professional, those guys all left. And so it was after that, right? It was those years. And then they scrapped that whole team, and they were terrible until Brandon Roy. But it was more fun. You felt like you could be a fan, at least, of those guys that were terrible, but also not getting arrested all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
It does kind of seem like, since we've been coherent fans anyway, that there has really been a big emphasis on just getting solid dudes in the organization. even if it sometimes seems like it's come at the cost of being championship good.
Wins.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But everyone on the team's likable for the most part, outside of probably the Felton year was the only year where it's really, since we've been fans, where it was really like, oh my gosh, these guys are the worst.
Yeah. I honestly,
it's actually,
go ahead, Kendall.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's interesting that you brought that up, Drew, because I was listening to one of the Blazers I think it was Locked On Blazers that I really enjoy listening to with Mike Richmond. And he used to travel with the team, do interviews. And somebody asked the question during Mailbag Monday of who are like the most unlikable players that you've been around. And he said, honestly, there's really nobody that's just been a bad dude that he's been with on the team. He said that there's guys who he hasn't enjoyed. I think Hassan Whiteside was the one that he said he disliked the most, but even that was more just in an interview sense and making his job hard. Yeah. Oh, he said he was terrible to ask questions to. Like he always misdirected things, spoken idioms, was just not a pleasant interview. He said he was a fine dude, but he said that he was just impossible to actually get an interview with. Robin Lopez was another one they said was tough to interview.
Oh, that surprises me a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he never wanted to talk basketball. Other things he'd talk, but basketball he said he was not interested in talking about.
That is not super surprising. Robin did seem, he was kind of an oddball. He fit Portland so well, but he was kind of an oddball.
Yeah.
He was. I'm convinced that the last several years that have been good for Blazers, it's Damian Lillard. That he is the catalyst for this being a good team with good people. I just don't think that the people that maybe the ones that aren't necessarily good people, I don't know that they stick around, or maybe they change a little bit. I'm fairly convinced that it's a direct result of Lillard.
It's hard to imagine some like dudes being fake, having to be around Dame every single day. Like Dame's not going to let it's hard to imagine Dame would let that happen. So I think I kind of agree with you where a lot of it I think a lot of the roster has to do with Dame and what his choices. I think he has a lot of control over a lot of it, which makes sense when you're thinking about the NBA and how much pressure is put on your best player, especially seemingly now. You really need that top level guy to win. You do kind of want them to have some control over the team, especially if there's someone that you can trust is not going to let that get to their head.
Yeah.
Is he possibly now the most famous person from Portland ever?
Oh man, what an interesting question. Yeah, maybe. Worldwide, probably. Most recognizable.
Would there be?
The only other person I think that would come close, just recognition wise, would be Bill Walton.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine Dame would have a little bit more just since he's playing in the modern era with the modern advertising.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the most global Blazer ever. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Well, it has been another great episode here at the Y Ball Starters. Thanks to my father for popping on. We'll see if any other fathers pop on in the future. Did you think of your starting five to kind of close us out, or at least have a couple thoughts?
Let's see if I can. I didn't, but let me see if I can think of it on the fly. At center, I would go
Steve
Sabonis. Maybe Steve Blank. Yeah, Marcus Camby.
Gerald Wallace.
No, I think I would go Sabonis at center, barely over Walton. I think Walton in his championship year really was unstoppable, but I think I'd pick Sabonis. I think Lillard for sure at point guard and Clyde Drexler at shooting guard. I mean, those are no brainers. As far as wings, I mean, if we're talking just all time and not how they played for the Blazers, I think Carmelo probably at the wing, and then it's that power forward slot that I'm honestly not entirely certain of. And if I'm building a team, I would want someone like Buck Williams in there as the power forward slot. If I'm picking best power forward, I may go LaMarcus Aldridge. But that team would be fairly suspect defensively.
See, it's funny, Jamie, because you actually almost picked 4 of my 5 players.
I know.
That I have. So I mean,
that's what
Kendall
I'm saying.
has
Like,
some good
I feel
picks
like you were
as well.
right there, Kendall. It's just the Steve Blake one just sent it into a tailspin.
It really did. It's downhill quick.
You'd have to hope that Steve Blake gets 14 assists in a quarter more than once in his career.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I also think like you could go Maurice Lucas to be on that. So I mean, just a guy that's gonna pound someone on the opposing team into submission.
Who got
That
Lucas?
guy's
Was
gonna
that you,
do it.
John? John, did you get Lucas?
You or me? Yeah, me.
You did.
I got
You
Maurice
did.
Lucas. Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
All right. Well, shout out to Maurice Lucas. Make sure if you're listening to this episode to subscribe to us on Spotify and YouTube and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of that's at YBall Starters. We will be going live after every Blazers playoff game throughout this series with the Nuggets and hopefully beyond. Obviously, a great start last night with Game 1. Thanks to everyone who tuned in, and have a great night.
Peace.
Later.